The second one I'll tell you about is in 1976, I officiated the Olympic trials. And it was an amazing experience. Now, this wasn't WWF. This was the real stuff, okay? To be around world-class athletes, and you got to remember something, in wrestling, our sport, there's no compensation. It's the honor of being an Olympian. And that's what these 20 wrestlers were competing for. And I can remember officiating a match. It was one of the Peterson brothers who had gone to the Olympics in '72 with Gable in that crowd. And he got beat. And I remember when I looked down and he was on his knee, one knee, and I didn't know what he was doing. I said, "Let's go, son." And when he finally got up, he didn't have his shoes on. And I'd never seen this before. And so I raised his opponent's hand. We walked off the mat. As some of you might have saw with Rulon Gardner in the Olympics when he finished up and retired as a wrestler when he won the bronze medal. I walked off the mat, and Frank Fiore, official from Cleveland, associate of mine, friend of mine, he said to me, I said, what's that about? And he said, when amateur wrestlers retire, if they gave it their best, they leave their shoes in the middle of the mat, which means they have nothing left to give. Man, I get goosebumps when I think about it. And when I saw Rulon Gardner do it, I thought, isn't that incredible? See, the question I think you have to ask yourself is when you leave here, where are your shoes going to be?
He's an incredible motivator. He's been a tremendous inspiration for me personally and a lot of other people within the organization.
I always walk away with enthusiasm, confidence, and a few extra tools for my toolkit when I come back, not only to my job, but also in my family and my community life, where I can apply some of the things I hear and learn from Pete to what I do every day.
Anytime you have made any kind of an impact or influence on anybody's life, you did it with this, not with this. You did it with your heart.
It's not just another business person coming in to talk about a leadership style or a leadership plan or a management plan. The concepts and the 10 truths, as described by Pete, really have the potential to create significant cultural change in an organization.
It has to start with love for ourselves, because that frees us up to be able to give love to others. And that's really what we're talking about here. It's about accepting people. I told you I had two sons. My older son, Peter, he wrote a letter to Notre Dame when he graduated from high school. It said, describe a childhood, when he was applying, it said, describe a childhood experience that influenced your young adult life. The letter went like this, says, it was 1988, it was May of 1988, I was a freshman at Alder High School in Dayton, Ohio. I was 4'10", I weighed 85 pounds, I was found to have a hormone deficiency, and I was on the drug Protopin, which someday would assure me my natural growth potential. Said, even though I was competitive academically, because of my size, I was the brunt of everyone's jokes. I was cut in baseball, I was cut in basketball, I had no self-esteem. Next paragraph said, it is December of 1992, I'm a senior John Carroll Catholic in Birmingham, Alabama. I'm 5'9", I weigh 155 pounds, I have a 4.4 GPA. I'm fourth in my class, I'm president of the National Honor Society, president of the Math Honor Society, president of the Concert Choir, I tutor Spanish 3 days a week, and ambassador for life that recruits in Catholic grade schools. I'm a 3-time letterman in baseball, 2-year letterman in basketball, and I was named the top scholar athlete my junior year at Birmingham Metro. Next paragraph said, what happened to me between now and then is my parents were transferred to Birmingham, Alabama. They asked me if I wanted to repeat my freshman year. Said I jumped at the chance and I've never looked back. What I've learned, that self-esteem is not about size, intelligence, or athletic ability, it's about confidence. And as I approach the rest of my life, I no longer fear the outcome and I look forward to the challenge. Peter Michael went to Notre Dame, he graduated summa cum laude, he went to South Alabama Medical School, he graduated magna cum laude. He went into his residency, folks, and 2 years into it decided he didn't want to be a doctor. Or he didn't want to practice. He is now with Eli Lilly in diabetes research. And he will spend the rest of his life working with young people, trying to help them solve the world's most serious disease. When I look at Peter, I see him where he was, and I see him where he is today. And the difference was simply, he learned to love himself. Amazing story. I kept looking at Richard. Richard was very active in class, very bright, but his whole right side of his body was dysfunctional, he was paralyzed. And so one day he came up to me, he said, Mr. Luongo, can I talk to you? He said, would you give me some help? He said, I lost my job. He was with IMES, and they moved their internet group overseas. And so Richard was out of a job, and he said, I'd like to have some tips on interviewing. So I said, sure. So he met me in my office, and so we sat down and talked. I said, Richard, let me ask you something. I said, what's wrong? What's your handicap caused from? He said, well, when I was 12 years old, I had a massive stroke and it paralyzed my entire right side. And I said, Richard, let me ask you something. Do you know how special you are? I said, I'll tell you what tip I want to give you for interviewing. The next time you go on an interview, the first thing you do is walk in and say, let me tell you why I'm special. Let me tell you what happened. Let me tell you my story. I said, Richard, they'll hire you in the first 5 minutes. True story, I'm in Joseph Bank. A guy walks up to me and I have no idea who the guy was. He said, are you Pete Luongo? And I said, I am. He said, I want to tell you a story. He said, I live next door to a young man by the name of Richard Fulmeyer. He said, I want you to know the difference you made in that young man's life. He said, you made him believe in himself. People, that took 5 minutes. This stuff isn't that difficult.
This book was one of the best leadership books that I've had the chance to review. It's one of the best books that I continue to go back to, that continue to keep me grounded as a leader. And I can ensure will keep you grounded as well.
And if you do that, and you create an environment where people feel valued, respected, part of something special, you're going to win. No question in my mind about that.